Okay, do not look at me, look, do not let me ramble about this for 42 bloody minutes. Do not, I'm counting on you, okay? This is your responsibility now. Stop me. The hell did I talk about for 42 bloody minutes? Life, the universe, and everything. I'm not helping my case right now, am I? Their entrance music, by the way, is so catchy. It's like catwalk music. I need something to match it, and I want to try and be a bit more interesting with my editing. So, ready? Woo! Party! Let's finally check in on those space bastards. I love such jarring juxtaposition. I mean, I'm someone who likes loudness anyway, but Ikazuchi, I'm calling him Ikazuchi. Ikazuchi and Spadu floating gently in space to what I think is the Blue Danube, which I know is a soundtrack, but I like to think Ikazuchi actually secretly likes to listen to. And then suddenly a smash cut to Adato screaming that he's late. Honestly, and I'm looking at this purely as the scene that is presented to me, without all that extra stuff, because don't let me complain about Adato unless it's relevant, because that's what led to a 42 minute long video of me being sad that Adato has nice moments. But honestly, I love seeing this as Ikazuchi and Subaru on their own, operating just perfectly together, getting on with things smoothly. They've got everything under control. It's peaceful and easy being up there in space maintaining a satellite. And then we've got Adato, who can't even get to work on time. It shows so perfectly how out of his depth Adato is in this very elaborate and grand world that he's suddenly been thrust into. Ikazuchi and Subaru are up there listening to waltz music, having a grand old time, I've gone Irish, while Adato is grounded on Earth screaming that he's late. And then he summons the bike, which zooms past Ikazuchi and Subaru. Yes, I'm about to turn what is clearly supposed to be a small comedic scene into an entire analysis, because, I mean, there's a 4-minute long video on this channel of me analysing a single image that turned out not to be remotely even relevant, so you know what you signed up for. So one way to look at it is that Ikazuchi and Subaru are so peaceful up there, intercut with Adato screaming, and this is really the last time we're ever going to see Ikazuchi and Subaru at peace with each other, let's be honest. So honestly, it's almost symbolism about how their perfectly fine lives are about to be disrupted. Secondly, Adato is running late, presumably because of his own inability to plan ahead of time, or wake up on time, or whatever. We don't have the context. We do know, however, that this is very in character for Adato. The first episode introduces him manically biking down the road late to his job. He then realises that, oh, he has this super cool Inspired by Cento app that summons this entire bike. That's easy, he can do that. But while the push of the button solves Adato's problem just like that, it very much disrupts Ikazuchi and Subaru and infuriates Ikazuchi in particular. It's just interesting to look into just how much humour gear do for humans when you don't even realise it, just how much work goes into it so that you can press a button and get stuff. And it's nice to see a humour gear be infuriated about extra unnecessary work being created. Now they've got to stuff the bloody bike back into Zeya just because Adato didn't set his alarm. And it's nice that Ikazuchi is allowed to be mad about this. No one's exploiting Ikazuchi around here. There's also just something so poetic about Ikazuchi outright stating, "I'm pissed off," while Subaru is still just gently floating behind him. Next we get Yua delivering a presentation about Metsubo Jinnai, and can I just say, in investigative shows, this is always one of my favourite bits, when you get to just take a minute to gather all of the threads so far, and you can start to see everything take shape. Although, to go on a tangent, usually in detective shows, these scenes are just so hilarious to me now, because it just reminds me of a primary school assembly where everybody has at least one line. All the detectives are just lined up delivering their bit, and then stepping back. Like, remember in primary school where we'd have those little tiny little pieces of paper because the teachers didn't trust us to remember our one line each. And we all used to be jealous of the person with the bigger slips of paper. Touch of cloth has ruined my ability to take the scene seriously now, so thanks Yua for doing this all on your own. We have... Right, let's try to figure out where these photos are taken. because we have a presentation of Metsubo Jinnai and they show Horobi and Jin both ordinarily and in their rider forms. Jin in his rider photo is from episode 6 when he's on the stage and he henshins for the first time. The Horobi civilian photo is from episode 8 where he tells Ansatsu-chan to attack. And Jin's photo has to have been taken at the same time because he's in front of the same building. I cannot for the life of me figure out where Horobi's comes from. He hasn't henshinned very often, but it's not at daybreak because we don't see him from that angle. And it didn't... I feel like it's got to be episode 8, but I don't know. Not that it matters, but I just wanted to know if I recognise them. They identify that Horobi can also be read as Metsu, and of course Jin is Jin, and therefore it makes sense that the name Metsubo Jinnai comes from them, and so there must be a bow and a rai. 4 people. And Horobi and Jin seem to be able to accurately find the right humour gear to hack. They only Zetsumarais humour gear who have gained Singularity, and the only way they could realistically know that is if there's a spy in Hiden. Somebody with a name that relates to either bow or rai. Because those are the two names, there are 2 of them, the 2 names that are left. 2. And Horobi then basically confirms this by saying they've finally gathered all the data they need. So it's time for someone to make an appearance, and adorable Jin is just lying on the settee. I love that Jin just has the time to lounge. What is he holding actually? Oh, it's his gun, I think. I spent way too much time trying to figure out what he was holding. But even so, that's adorable. We don't really tend to see humour gear fidget. The fact that Jin is just there, lying down, fidgeting with something, I find that amazing. Again, movement is so hard. That's why the Boston Dynamics keep putting out videos of robots being shoved and stabilising themselves, and why it's such a big deal when Spot can continue trying to open a door when some dickhead is there pulling him back and closing the door on him. And when that one robot flipped, why there's a video out there of them dancing. It's because winning a game of chess, that's easy. But dancing to Uptown Funk, that's incredible. So Jin being there, fidgeting, doing movements that he doesn't need to be doing, and let's be honest, probably wasn't programmed to do, that and his clear need to keep his hands busy. It's so incredible. Adato gets to work. Public distrusts them. They need the Dodo Keystore to clear their names and announce Metsubo Jinnai's crimes. And Ikazuchi swarms in and says, "Wouldn't stepping down be a better idea?" and enter the catwalk music. Subaru is the one who politely but assertively confronts Adato about using the bike outside of work hours. Ikazuchi walks in, leads Subaru in, and starts the whole interaction, but Subaru is the one to actively say it, while Ikazuchi takes a step back and lets Subaru handle it. Ikazuchi only afterwards says, "We're the ones who have to drag the bike back to Zeya. Don't give us any more unnecessary work." And Adato apologises, he didn't know about that and he'll be more careful from now on. Subaru accepts his apology and starts to leave, but Ikazuchi grabs him and says, "That's not good enough, Subaru. Don't go easy on him just because he's president." And naturally I have to analyse the living hell out of this interaction, so here we go. Ikazuchi is only doing as much as he needs to. He brings Subaru into the office and sets up the interaction for Subaru to speak. Ikazuchi could easily have ripped into Adato himself, and given he was the one who was pissed off, I'm sure he'd have loved to do that. He wouldn't have had a problem doing that himself, but he isn't. He's using this as a teachable moment for Subaru. Subaru doesn't say anything aggressive or even accusatory. Adato did summon the bike, and Subaru simply stated that. "You used the bike outside of work hours, correct?" Ikazuchi only then added on to what Subaru already said. Subaru voiced the problem, and Ikazuchi explained why this was a problem. Subaru then accepted Adato's apology, and Ikazuchi taught him not to go easy on people who were taking you for granted. I like how Ikazuchi isn't only teaching Subaru how a satellite works, he's teaching him not to let humans walk all over him. He's teaching him that if somebody does something to you, you are allowed to speak up about it. He's teaching him that an apology sometimes isn't enough. Ikazuchi is passing down some wonderful life lessons to Subaru. And up until this point, humour gear really do get walked all over by humans. It's always been about humour gear going above and beyond to serve their human overlords. So the fact that Ikazuchi is teaching Subaru not to be passive about that Adato used the bike outside of work hours, and that isn't okay. And it's not okay for humans to just throw piles of work at you that is not your job description. I mean, we bought drinks in and had some Cactus Jack and sours to celebrate my dad handing his notice in for this very reason. I'm very passionate about this. It's so nice to have a Humagir be angry towards a human and teach other Humagir that it's okay to be angry with people. Adato's wow, even Humagir can get angry line is just a taster of what's to come. But Ikazuchi determines the best way for Adato to learn is to actually get a taste of what they have to do, of what their work entails, which I really love. I love Adato having to actually learn what Humagir have to go through, rather than just watching them get abused and going, wow, Sasuga, Humagir. No, don't let me. We talk about how Zaya manages Humagir, and I don't like that the solution was negative data is bad, rather than all Humagir being governed by a single satellite is bad and Zaya isn't any more healthy than the Ark, and maybe we should be helping Humagir become their own people, and even if they do require a satellite, humans having any part of that satellite is actually quite disturbing, and it should be a purely Humagir thing. Like, I know G-Pen demonstrates later how much Humagir just cannot function after suddenly being disconnected from a satellite, and if that's what happens when the satellite is there, imagine if it was the Ark. But I'd have loved for Ikazuchi and Subaru's stories to have concluded with them taking charge of the new satellite, because it really should be purely governed by Humagir, and humans should not be involved, because as long as humans have that power, it's weird and disturbing and a little bit gross. But getting ahead of myself. Subaru is the one who talks technically, who says that Zaya governs Humagir, and Ikazuchi is the one who talks more about how exciting the job is, that it takes them all over the cosmos, and he keeps engaging with Subaru and trying to get him to join in on a personal level. Like, it's exciting, isn't it, Subaru? But Subaru then responds with more technical discussion about how lack of oxygen isn't a problem for Humagir. So Subaru is very focused on the work, on the technical stuff, but Ikazuchi is trying to engage in conversation and prompt him to respond more. But in a very casual way, there's no, Subaru, stop being so technical. But it feels very much like Ikazuchi is not only teaching Subaru all the technical stuff, but he's guiding him towards singularity in a world that Ikazuchi knows, whether he knows or not, isn't kind to Humagir. Ikazuchi doesn't just want to make sure Subaru will have enough experience to maintain a satellite on his own, he wants to make sure Subaru will be okay navigating life on his own, interacting with people, standing up for himself and enjoying things. He doesn't want Subaru to be just another product of Hiden, he just wants Subaru to be okay when he is no longer there to guide him. The way Ikazuchi then just puts his arm around Subaru and goes, the starry sea of space awaits us, and Subaru, he smiles just a little bit. It's once again Metsubo Jinrai just being so family-based and nurturing, and I love it. I do find it interesting that Metsubo Jinrai are the ones most associated with the arc. Ikazuchi is currently at least influenced, if not fully hacked by the arc. He's a sleeper agent, so he doesn't know that, but he's still a part of all that, so it feels almost as if the arc's negative data is bleeding through in Ikazuchi's own experiences, maybe. Because, Ikazuchi clearly has history with Horobi, who clearly had crap happen to him, so he's probably experienced humanity's awful behaviour firsthand. And it's given Ikazuchi that clarity that Humagir don't generally have, that actually humans can be bad for you, and you have the right to call them out on it. It's just another interesting insight. Aims appear and Ikazuchi immediately starts trying to assert his dominance. He strains his posture, crosses his arms and gives them such a how dare look. Like he has no clue what they're there for, but he is offended. He is offended that they would even dare have the audacity to exist in his vicinity. Who do they think they are, breathing in his general direction? Yua asks if they are indeed the space bastards in charge of the satellite, and despite Ikazuchi being the senior space bastard here, Subaru is the one that confirms that yes, that's them, and asks if there's something wrong. Ikazuchi is just staring at them like their entire existence is a personal insult to him, letting Subaru do the actual talking. Yua continues questioning them for a bit, and Subaru is the only one to reply until Ikazuchi steps between them and threatens Yua, almost as if he knows what it means for Humage to be questioned by Ames. It's basically a death sentence. It's like, yeah, I'll step back and let Subaru deal with this a little bit, but also don't you dare go existing around my little brother. He's giving Subaru that independence, but is also protecting him at the same time. He delivers his catchphrase about bringing down the thunder, and Fuwa's like, "Thunder, are you the spy?" Just like that, because Fuwa is nothing if not impulsive. And Ikazuchi, if Ikazuchi wasn't offended before, he bloody is now, and he grabs Fuwa and yells, "Are you accusing me of being a terrorist?" And Fuwa grabs Ikazuchi and yells, "What's with the attitude?" And they just proceed to compete over who can be the loudest. I think I've said this before, but I adore loud, grabby characters, so Fuwa and Ikazuchi are just wonderful for me. I love them. Fuwa then says, "Toshimaru-zo?" which I've seen translated as to put behind bars. I think it could also be used to mean to crack down on, like, essentially, this is an issue and we're going to crack down on it. I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure, and I don't like to assume the way one person chooses to translate something is gospel. Translation is hard. But I think Toshimaru-zo is a lot less violent than Butsu-bus, and it's a lot more "you won't get away with this" than "I'll destroy you," so nice growth for Fuwa. But then Yua and Izu have to pull them apart while Subaru declares his Nissan can't be the spy, and Ender Jin, oh I miss baby Jin. And Subaru watches them henshin with what looks to be such genuine intrigue and amazement, and that's so cute. Are we doing well for time this time? I'm all of a sudden having a very bad asthma day, so you'll have to excuse me if I sound like I'm out of breath. That'll be because I'm out of breath. Eventually, Jin attempts to hack Subaru, but Ikazuchi pushes him out of the way and takes the hit, all according to Keikaku. I remember at the time being a bit iffy about this because it felt like there was an implication that because Ikazuchi, Raiden at the time, could withstand the hacking, that meant the other Humage who were hacked were just not strong enough or not trying hard enough. I think because it wasn't played as he's such an advanced Humage it doesn't work, it was more down to his personality, and that felt a little victim blamey. I mean, that's how I interpreted it. I'm not saying that was the intention, but it just felt like he's withstanding the hacking and Anaki's fury is something else. It felt more personal and almost like it opened up a window of opportunity to then blame other Humage for not trying hard enough. That's where my mind went back then, because again, you have to remember I'm very passionate about AI and AI characters, and I don't want to see AI characters be blamed for things out of their control, like being hacked. But of course, that's not what happened. I'll get back to that later. I mean, I should have had more faith, as if we're going to start blaming Humage for being hacked. That doesn't make sense. That's just an awful connotation, so I'm sure glad I was wrong and we're not doing that. But ignoring those minor, uneasy feelings I felt at the time, and they were minor. Oh my god, how bloody cool is Ikazuchi? Like, seriously, immediately in love with him, immediately wanted to see more. I just was not ready to accept the ending of this episode, even though we'd only just met him in this one episode. Like, I care so much about 01 characters so quickly. I mean, that's such a talent Takahashi has, to just throw a character in your face and you immediately just love them. Jin then reveals, shockingly, that Ikazuchi was a daybreak survivor, and I, shockingly, have weird feelings about the way this is put to us, because it's described as though Ikazuchi being a daybreak survivor, which I'm not trying to discredit. He is a daybreak survivor, and that must come with such a degree of PTSD, honestly. Don't pretend like the arc was the only reason there aren't more older models hanging around. He's not alive right now because he survived daybreak. He's alive right now because humans wanted him to train the new guy. Yura comments asking why an older model is still active and working with Zaya. And it's made very clear that he's going to be deactivated again once his job is complete. So he's a bloody survivor of humans is what he is. He was reactivated specifically for the Zaya project, that's what he says. It's so disturbing and dystopian that Humage are only allowed to be active to work, and when there's no longer any work, they for all intents and purposes get killed. You just deactivate them and put them away. Ew! Ikazuchi says to Subaru that he's going to sail the seas of space on his own someday. He doesn't outright say they're going to deactivate me, but he's only active to teach Subaru, and once Subaru can do it himself, he'll be doing it on his own, and that's the only reason Ikazuchi is currently here alive and walking around. And so when he's done, he's going to be deactivated again? That's what they're talking about. And Aruto looks at him with this wistful smile and says, just like real brothers. Again, translation is hard, so because I'm picking apart specifically what he's saying, Honmono no kyodai mitai da na. Again, this is very crappy breakdown because Japanese is hard. But Honmono, real, kyodai, brothers, mitai da, looks like. There's really no other way to translate that other than they're just like real brothers. Which, first of all, they are. They look like real brothers. They resemble real brothers. They're similar to real brothers. No, they are actual legitimate brothers, Aruto. Second of all, how weird is that? You are watching a conversation about how Ikazuchi was only activated to do this job and will likely be deactivated afterwards. Subaru will be on his own. You're going to be sailing the starry seas of space on your own when they kill me for finishing my job. And Aruto's just like, wow, just like real brothers. Maybe it's because I'm an only child, but I don't think that's how siblings work. I didn't realise that when the younger sibling came of age, the older sibling was executed. What a sheltered, only child life I've led. Also, if you have the ability to revive more older generation Hyuga than you actually have, then don't try to pretend they're victims of the Ark and the Ark alone. Oh, they're dead because of the explosion. No, they died because of the explosion. They're still dead because you're keeping them that way. I have so many feelings about Fuwa and Ikazuchi. First of all, it's really interesting that in this moment, Ikazuchi is a daybreak survivor who has no clue who he actually is, but fully thinks he does. He's leading this completely double life, and Fuwa fully believes that he too is a daybreak survivor despite the fact that isn't true, and he has this entire life that's lost to him. Both Fuwa and Ikazuchi in this moment have their pasts, their true selves completely hidden from them while having no idea, and I just find that interesting. Second of all, I don't know, I get trauma vibes from Ikazuchi. From Fuwa, it's very obvious. His memories, whether real or fake, traumatize him, and he reacts as such. His entire character is just this huge blinking sign saying, I have PTSD, whereas Ikazuchi seems in a better place mentally, but at the same time, there's just something about him. There's something about how he is a lot more visceral towards humans. There's just something in the way he acts, to me, in my opinion, that says he also has a good degree of trauma. And I mean, to have experienced something like Daybreak, you really have to. It could have been interesting to see more of that, for Ikazuchi to have been allowed to express a degree of trauma too. Like, we have this human daybreak survivor and this Hyuga daybreak survivor, and it could have been a fun opportunity to explore everything we've been told from Fuwa's point of view, from a Hyuga's point of view. Because I have to stress that when certain revelations are made in the future, when it's revealed Fuwa's memories are faked and he was never there, well, that then removes really the only credible source we've heard. We now have no credible flashbacks aside from the few we see in Anna's episode, and therefore really who actually knows what happened. It doesn't matter. From the point of view of someone who wants to know what happened, then of course it matters, but as a character aspect it really doesn't. He's been haunted by these memories. Being told actually no, that never happened doesn't erase what he's experienced. So even though technically Fuwa isn't a daybreak survivor, he still experienced being a daybreak survivor, and that's not anything to be ignored. Plus, we didn't know this back then. All we knew was that Ikazuchi was a daybreak survivor and so was Fuwa. But honestly, I think a lot of my feelings towards this series is just wishing for more. Like, Woz was my favourite character in Zio, so of course, while I wish we had more of him, because honestly, the film just left more questions than answers, and I wish he'd have, like, you know, been there and done stuff and had an ending. We did get some bloody amazing development from Sogo and Gates, as well as it being an anniversary series, juggling such a huge supporting cast, and we got a decade and the end again, and like, so much happened that it's easy to think, okay, we've run out of time to deal with this. That's fine, because there's all this other stuff to enjoy. But with 01, it feels like all of these connections were made but never followed through, and you're just left with this feeling of, but what about this though? But Fuwa is hostile towards Ikazuchi because 1. Raiden, Metsubo Jinnai, bringing down the thunder. He's not a very good spy. Ames, what's up? I've been spying to meet you. But 2, because he's a daybreak survivor. He says that makes him even more suspicious, but a human had a hand in the town's destruction, and a human bloody well coded the arc to be like this in the first place, so this really could have been a cool insight from the other side. You're suspicious to me because you were a human gear at daybreak, well, you're suspicious to me because you were a human at daybreak. I was a child and we were hacked. Like, I don't know, I feel like it could have been an interesting opportunity to have some degree of equal footing, but we don't treat human gear equally here. Down with equality. Also on that subject, why is Ikazuchi immediately helping them find Horobi and Jin's hideout when he has just been attacked? His clothes are still all burnt at the back, he was hurt, those wires definitely would have dug into him, and nobody, not even our oh-so-compassionate protagonist, stopped for a second to ask Ikazuchi if he was okay. Ah, Anarchy, are you okay? Do you want to turn to those first? Nah, I'm tougher than I look, you know. Just a tiny interaction, but he just never cares to ask. It's such a running theme in this series of seeing all of the human casualties and then the human gear casualties just sort of there and not being tended to and not being asked about. Don't get me started about the fire one, because that's painted as such a nice episode, but then there's one bit that just gets to me, but I'm not getting into it yet. But just how am I supposed to assume he's nice and sweet and lovely and compassionate if he's not even taking a second to say, you okay? Nope, just straight back to work. Fuwa is not having a good time being there, and that's what I mean. His trauma of these events is so clear. He's leaning over the railings and he's clenching his fists and he is not having a good time of it. This isn't someone who's angry for the sake of it, who's being mean to human gear because he's a mean person. This is a person who's been traumatized and lacks the ability to get help for it, is hiding behind this tough persona to fight off the vulnerabilities, and he's taking his anger out on the people that he has been led to believe are responsible and will always be responsible. He's wrong, and he clearly learns that later. The fact that he's going from having this reaction here to talking casually with Horobi later, and going from all human gear are evil killing machines and I'll destroy every last one, to telling Horobi, if you're going against humanity again, you must have a good reason for it. It's huge development on his part. This is why Fuwa is one of my favourites. We get all these little opportunities to just linger a little, see these reactions, see how he's more than just a volatile, angry person. And again, these memories being fake doesn't erase these very real feelings he's feeling now. But then they go into daybreak and Jin leaps down to meet them giggling and he's so cute, I miss him! And he says that he's there to fetch someone. And Okaeri, Ikazuchi! And this awakens something in Ikazuchi. And Fuwa's like, so you were the spy! And grabs him for the 3rd time in this one episode. And he says, I'm no spy! And I don't know, is holding Fuwa back in this actual display of niceness and caring, only to ruin it. Because, I'm sorry, this whole premise started because Horobi is a dad who wants this safe world for human gear and his son. His whole thing, his whole identity as a person is that he loves his son. There's no way such a loving brother could be a spy. Yes. Yes, there is. First of all, he is also hacked by the Ark, so irrelevant. But second of all, you could very much be a loving brother and also do bad things. Surely being such a loving brother could in fact be the reason the world is not nice to human gear. Ikazuchi is such a loving brother who thinks the world of his little brother. Doesn't that make even more sense? I mean, do you not think, between you and me, not Adato, because Adato is definitely not thinking this yet, but just, you know, between you and me, do you not think it's fitting that 3 out of 4 members of Metsubo Jinnai are so family oriented? If anything, I feel like that helps. Taking human gear who care about others, who are so very loving people, and twisting them into these quote-unquote terrorists isn't that's so much easier than hacking people who don't care, because you don't have to force as much. You take people who are already passionate and already care and already want a better world for the people they care about, and you just twist that, as opposed to just implanting that from scratch. Does that make sense? But no, such a loving brother couldn't be a spy. Such a loving brother can't possibly be hacked. Remember, you're immune to hacking if you're a loving family member. I don't know why that line bothered me so much, but like, what does that have to do with anything? What is your thought process here, Anato? Ikazuchi can't possibly dislike humans because he's such a loving brother to his Humagir brother. What kind of mental gymnastics is going on here? He can be a spy and also love his very real actual brother. Jin then explains that Ikazuchi doesn't even know he's a spy, he's not a willing spy, so stuff you actually, Anato. And Jin also reveals that when he tried to hack them, Ikazuchi withstood it, and that was actually him uploading a new program to tell him to take them to Daybreak. I really honestly love this. I love that at the start, Jin has to actively go and physically hack people, but then as time goes on and more data is collected, the act of Humagir being justifiably angry or upset towards humans is enough to give the Ark an in to hack them, and then the Ark is eventually powerful enough to actively possess people. I love this growth in strength, the actual visual growth in strength, as opposed to just being told the Ark is growing stronger. Like, we know that because we can see it. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this, but there is genuinely a thunderstorm outside right now. I mean, obviously outside. There's not a thunderstorm inside, is there? I doubt that was picked up, but there's a funny thunderstorm outside. I'm sorry, Ikazuchi, I really like your episode. You're one of my favourites, Ikazuchi, leave me alone. I have basically just resigned myself to the fact some of these videos are going to be ridiculously long and you're just gonna have to deal with it. So I am going to go on yet another tangent and just ramble about Sunagawa for a sec, because all that happens in the scene is Horobi is just sort of sitting there in standby, and the Ark smashes a hole in the wall, and Horobi stands up and goes through the hole into their new printing room and says, "Suini, Arku no chino ga fukugen shira." And that's it. Also in a way better way than I did just said, "Suini, Arku no chino ga fukugen shira." No, that's crap. You get the point. It doesn't matter what he said. It's not about what he said. Sunagawa has such incredible stage presence. He's got such a great awareness of how much space he's occupying and what to do with it. I was talking about this with a friend, so I've got to bring it up now while I'm watching him. When he was playing Horobi, he talked about how every movement was deliberate. Like, he wanted to move as little as possible, and then Jin, in contrast, moved as much as possible and was very bouncy and, well, childlike, and that meant, while anyone else might have just walked over to the hole and ducked under it and stepped inside, Sunagawa would have been very conscious of the way in which he stood up and crossed the room and ducked through the hole in the wall. I have nothing to say about this other than it's bloody amazing and something you'd expect of a very accomplished actor, not someone who's really in his breakout role. It's incredible and I wanted to mention it. Anyway, then they fight, Ikazuchi's on the floor, Jin leaps down and turns to Ikazuchi and says, "Nii-chan, are you okay?" And that's why it's so hard to feel any sort of threat from Mesamo Jinnai and any sort of sympathy towards Anato. I mean, forgive me for wanting the ones who are nice to each other to win. Oh my god, this is the bit, isn't it, in the manga, when Fuwa leaps up and he's like an actual wolf. Anyway, they have a wolf key, and it's supposedly compatible only with Mesamo Jinnai, but Fuwa can use it anyway, which was a huge deal, and I was so excited to learn why, because surely that was going to come up again. It's such a strange thing to say if it's never going to be relevant. I regret being excited and interesting about that, but I digress. How embarrassing would it have been though if it actually didn't work? If you went through all that, if it's got a wolf on it, it's mine, and I make the rules, and then it don't work. But it does, he henshins, fires the bullet, Horobi does this beautiful dodge, while Jin leaps out of the way, and that in itself is so indicative of how aware and deliberate those movements are. I do also kind of love how Ikazuchi, it looks like he's just anticipating a bullet, but then all of a sudden a bloody wolf is running at him and he's like, oh shit! But anyway, Fuwa wins, Ikazuchi explodes, Jin goes, Ni-chan! And he's very genuinely hurt by this, and Jin picks up the key and says, what is this? It feels really awful. And Horobi explains it's because he's nearing Singularity. This poor baby boy is nearing Singularity because these humans keep killing his friends and family. How is that not bloody tragic? I mean, how heartbreaking is that? Oh, I don't want to do the next episode. I don't want to. I just want to watch the Euros. I can't handle it. So you might have noticed this video looks very different. 6 minutes into editing this and I thought, I can't do it anymore. As my disability progresses, I'm losing more and more use of my hands and shoulders and neck. Manually adding text to my videos is getting to be extremely painful and is making it so I just don't want to do videos anymore if it's going to hurt that much. It got to the point where I couldn't do anything fun with them. I couldn't experiment any with different ways to present the video because by the time I'd finished all of that, I was just so exhausted and in so much pain that I didn't care anymore. I couldn't even bring myself to quality check afterwards. So I just finished editing, render, upload, and that was it. I want to make my videos as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. When it's having an effect on my own health, I can't do it. And, you know, I have ability to go to now, which is really cool. It's bright orange and called Ikazuchi. But that means I really can't be in the mindset of, it's okay if I hurt my hands doing videos, because what else am I going to use them for in a day? Because I kind of need my hands to get about now. But I learned you can edit the automatic captions on YouTube, and obviously with my bloody accent half the time there's still a lot to edit, but I'm hoping it'll be so much easier and less taxing on my hands to do it that way. So I hope that's okay. I hope that still, you know, makes my videos okay to follow. It really is the only feasible way I can do it anymore, and while changing the structure halfway through the retrospectives is gonna wreak havoc on my OCD, if it works, it's probably for the best.